Yeah, it's Mr. Irrelevant on your Monday. I'm Alex Strouf with you from the Everlight Solar Studio in downtown Madison, Wisconsin. As always, joined alongside producer Tiny Hands. That's the great Hunter Vaughn with me. Lots to get into from the weekend, right? Like we had a big Badgers game at the Kohl Center yesterday. At the time, number 6 Wisconsin hosted number 2 Purdue. Ultimately fell to number 2 Purdue. We'll dive into that. The Pro Bowl was yesterday. Anybody watch that? I want to talk about that for a moment. Sean Mannion, the former NFL quarterback, brought in as an assistant head coach, or an assistant quarterbacks coach, rather, for the Green Bay Packers. Really like that move. I want to talk about what that means for the Packers, why they're making that move, etc. As well as I want to talk a little bit about the Grammys. I watched the Grammys last night. I don't talk about it much. This doesn't feel like the usual forum to talk. I'm a huge music fan. So I watch the Grammys every year. I get very excited about them. And I watched most of it yesterday. I jumped in a little late, but I caught most of it. I jumped in right after Taylor Swift announced the album. I actually missed the Tracy Chapman-Luke Combs duo live, but I obviously went back and watched it. So I want to talk a little Grammys at some point. Our buddy Jim Rutledge, who is the foremost expert on Taylor Swift at ESPN Madison, going to join us. We'll talk football, but we might talk a little T-Swift. And then, of course, what Strouf Learned to wrap it up in about an hour. So let's dive in. Hunter, before we dive in, though, how was your weekend?
It was busy.
Yeah, I noticed.
Friday night, went with the hall monitor, Jesse Nelson, as well as the dean, Dennis Sumrow, over to Cedarburg. Expected to see Davion Hamilton. Hannah. I have no idea where I got Hamilton from.
Matt Hamilton. I'm wearing a gold medal today in his honor.
Yeah. Davion Hannah, the number 33 recruit in the junior class, according to ESPN.
Yeah, class of 25, yeah.
Yep. Turned out he was a little sick, so didn't even play. So drove an hour 45 to see a player that didn't play, but it was still a great game. Cedarburg with the upset victory.
Good.
And then Saturday, went with one of our teammates, Adul, to the Wisconsin men's hockey game against Minnesota.
Well, shootout action in the border battle, yeah.
Adul, not knowing anything about hockey, got the perfect intro game.
That's true. So was that like his first hockey game?
He said he had gone to like some minor league stuff, but it doesn't really count. Like unless you're going NHL or high-level college hockey like the Badgers and Minnesota, doesn't quite hit the same.
Nice.
Also saw probably about a 9-year-old decked out in Wisconsin stuff, walking into one of the suites, but before he goes in, he turns, sees 2 Minnesota fans, and just goes, "You guys suck. You suck." I'm like, yes, I love college hockey. The hockey world is awesome.
That makes me really happy. I like that kid. I like kids that yell stuff, man, at sporting events.
It was great.
There was this kid, and I don't know why this story popped in my head, but I was at an ACW Wisconsin event. That's a like pro wrestling event in Oshkosh.
Shocker.
And there was like a 9-year-old kid sitting in front of us one year, and he was dropping F-bombs left and right at the wrestlers in the ring.
Wow.
And it was me and a bunch of buddies from college, so obviously we had a few cocktails. We were probably not the best influences on this child. As he was just rifling off F-bombs. It wasn't our fault. We were like, whoa, what's going on here? And he had a weird name. I don't remember what it was, though.
Did he also have a mullet?
He did. Yeah. You're absolutely correct.
Yeah,
he did. Yeah. I like, that's the thing about stereotypes. Sometimes they're right.
Yeah.
That one happened to be correct.
It just kind of fits.
Yeah, no doubt. So, anyway, I don't know why we sidetracked to that story. All right, let's dive into the hoops game yesterday. As Wisconsin falls to Purdue at the Kohl Center, final 75-69. That's 2 straight losses now for Wisconsin as they fall to second place. Now in the Big Ten, previously all by themselves in first place of the Big Ten, but now tied with Illinois, second place in the Big Ten. Purdue moves into first place, all that good stuff. And look, I don't know that I necessarily anticipated a win yesterday at the Kohl Center, but I anticipated maybe something a little bit more competitive. And what I mean by that is Wisconsin didn't lead at all, right, other than very early on. They built a nice lead early, and then Purdue came back, and that was kind of it. Second half, they were in it the entire time, but they never hit the shot they needed to hit. They had open looks, just couldn't knock it down. 0 for 11 from three-point land. That's going to bite you in the butt. When you're facing a dude that is legitimately 7 million feet tall in Zach Edey, like, you're going to get beaten on the boards. So second chance opportunities, second chance points for Purdue were obviously much higher than Wisconsin. But that kind of comes with the territory when you're playing a legitimate giant in Zach Edey. So they didn't get their butts kicked. They didn't get blown out of the water. They shot 0 of 11 from 3 in the second half and still only lost by 6 points. So I feel similarly to how I did with the Packers a few times this year. Okay, they lost the game, but I feel good about it. Like, I felt good about that Wisconsin loss. I think they proved they belong in the conversation with Purdue because just do math. They go 2 for 11 from 3 in the second half. It's a tie game. They missed some open shots. They missed some bad shots. Shot selection wasn't always great. A.J. Storr had one of his roughest offensive nights of the year. I think he was 4 of 15. I thought Tyler Wall was terrific for the Badgers. So there's negative and there's positives to come away from that game. But ultimately, you should feel pretty good about what the Badgers were able to accomplish despite the loss. Now they go into an easier stretch of their schedule, and hopefully they can rebound ahead of a couple games in March that are really tough, including Illinois and another matchup at Purdue. That'd be my takeaway from that one yesterday. As the Badgers, look, I say this all the time about college basketball this year. It's incredible. The parity is incredibly high, right? There is not a clear-cut best team in college. Let me rephrase that. There is like 2 good teams in college basketball. I think we can put Purdue there, but they're beatable, right? Wisconsin proved that. And by the way, the environment at the Kohl Center, Area Red. Shout out to you, Area Red. They showed up overnight. They had people camping overnight. They had body paint, FU, Zach Edey chants were berserk. Multiple. Did you watch the game on TV, Hunter?
I did not. I was busy axe throwing, and turns out that the location we were at did not get CBS, so couldn't watch the game.
Okay, hold on. You were axe throwing yesterday?
Yeah.
You missed that part in your weekend recap.
Well, we got sidetracked with the kid chirping at grown adults. Went axe throwing on Sunday, kind of a Christmas present from my sister and brother-in-law to my wife and I, so... my parents went and babysat my niece, and the 4 of us went to lunch and then went axe throwing.
Interesting.
Realized that I need to throw axes with my left hand, not my right hand.
Are you left-handed?
I right-handed, but like I throw a football with my left hand, so I should have known
you're
better.
Ambidextrous. Is that what this is? That what it is? Ambidextrous?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was a mistake on my end, and then I was really good with my left hand, so now I want to go back.
You're a chaotic human being. All right.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was just curious if the F Zach Edey chants picked up on TV. Because, look, the Kohl Center was as loud as it's been. I mean, the Marquette game probably, back in December, probably has a case. But I would argue it's the loudest I've seen it in 3 years, right? The last time it was that loud was when they beat Purdue a couple of years back, 2 seasons ago, when Chucky Hepburn made that late shot. They ultimately win that game. Students storm the floor, yada, yada, yada. It's the loudest I've heard it since then. And it was an awesome environment. The student section brought it. The fans showed up. It was an awesome environment. It really was. But the Badgers, unfortunately, weren't able to hit shots in the second half. And, you shoot yourself in the foot so many times, you're eventually going to die, right? Like, that's how it goes. And unfortunately for the Badgers on Sunday, that was kind of the case. But, again, I think you can take positives out of that game. Wisconsin still proved they can be an elite team in this country. Like, they can still, and they may still be. The AP poll hasn't been released yet. The coaches poll has been. Wisconsin's still ranked number 9 in the country, according to the coaches. Marquette, by the way, Hunter, just for you as a Golden Eagles fan, Marquette up 3 spots to number 7 in the coaches poll. So Marquette 7, Wisconsin 9 in this week's coaches poll. UConn and Purdue remain the top 2. UConn number 1, Purdue number 2, North Carolina number 3. That's the same as last week. So there you go. From the coaches poll, we'll keep an eye. The AP poll should be out while we're still rolling here in the next hour. So overall, good, bad, all the in-betweens. The Badgers are still a good team. This is still a team that can make a run. And we'll talk to Jim Rutledge about it, but we were talking on the phone this morning. And I think you can view what a win is very easily. Hunter went on an amazing rant about the Milwaukee Brewers on Friday. Like, it's NLCS or bust for that team, as it should be. Maybe not this year because they have seriously downgraded, at least in terms of their pitching staff. But you view teams through an expectations lens, right? And with the Packers, it was with Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre, Super Bowl or bust. Get to the Super Bowl or bust. NFC Championship loss isn't good enough. We're sick of that. With the Badgers, coming off of a year where they didn't make the tournament, they went on a nice run in the NIT. and they're consistently being viewed as a top 15, top 10 team in the country this year with some of the wins they have, some of the games they've competed in. It should be Sweet 16 or bust. It should be. They got to get out of that first weekend, and that should typically be the expectation for Wisconsin. They're always in the conversation. Now, they had a couple of years down, but 2 years ago with Johnny Davis, it was a failure. You lost to Iowa State in Milwaukee. It's a home game in the round of 32. You can't let that happen. And there just wasn't a lot of examples of that under Bo Ryan. Under Greg Gard, there's been more, but he needed time to build up what he thought was an ideal roster. And I think this is really the first year he has that in terms of depth, in terms of position players, in terms of skilled scorers. Like, this is the first year I feel like Greg Gard has truly had a team that should be able to make a run. So as it stands on February 5th, the expectation for the Wisconsin Badgers men's basketball team should be get to the Sweet 16, be a top 3 team in the Big Ten. I mean, they're tied for second place, as I mentioned. They should be able to maintain that with the schedule they have ahead. They have really good opportunities to rebound, beginning with at at Michigan on Wednesday. They go to Michigan, they go to Rutgers, then they come back home and host Ohio State next week on Tuesday. That is. So those are beatable teams. And then you go to Iowa, always a tough place to play, always a tough, gritty team. But again, you should win that one. Maryland's solid. You go to Indiana at the end of February, but then March is where it gets tough. You host Illinois, you go to you host Rutgers, and then you go to Purdue to end the regular season. Then obviously you have the Big Ten tournament. So that's a total of 9 games remaining. The Badgers should realistically go 7-2, and that may even be good enough to win the Big Ten, depending on how things shake out. I thought what was really interesting for Matt Painter, the head coach of Purdue after the game, is he views the Big Ten as the most competitive conference in college basketball. Obviously, he's biased, but he views it that way, right? All of the teams are good. Every team can beat every team. If you go 15-5 in Big Ten play, that's a successful season, despite the fact you take 5 losses in conference play. It's still viewed as a successful season if you go 15-5. As you look at the Big Ten as it stands right now, Purdue is 10-2. Wisconsin and Illinois are both 8-3. And there's a significant gap between Wisconsin and then Northwestern Michigan State and Minnesota and Nebraska, who are all kind of tied up just beneath them there. So that, to me, is still maintainable. You go 7-2, that means you end 15-5. And that should give you a 1, 2, or 3 seed in the Big Ten. So I think that's interesting. All right, coming up next, Pro Bowl yesterday. Nobody watched it, right? Like, I've seen clips. I've seen some of the fun skill challenges. I can't say I watched it. I just have no interest in watching flag football. Am I wrong for that? Am I being too judgmental? Should I give it a chance? Like, I could rewatch it today. I recorded it. I don't know. I don't really have a desire to watch flag football.
I watched Jason Kelsey playing with his daughters. That was super wholesome. I saw that on TikTok.
They played flag football together?
No, they were just like playing around on the field, and he was just being like a girl dad with them, and it was really cute. But I saw it on TikTok.
Interesting.
I don't care about the Pro Bowl anymore. I really don't care about any of the All-Star stuff.
Yeah, I'm pretty much out on all of it as well.
Yeah.
NBA All-Star Game I'll watch. That's probably the only. MLB I'll probably watch a little bit of.
I'll watch the Home Run Derby still.
Yeah. I'll watch the Derby. I'll watch the three-point contest. I'll watch the dunk contest, although that's come down quite a bit in the last couple of years. I'll watch some of the skill stuff. And I thought the QB stuff I think they did on Friday or Saturday night was cool, right? Like seeing Baker Mayfield throw at things. Like, that's fun to me. I like that kind of stuff. But the actual flag football game doesn't intrigue me that much.
No, they need to just keep it a skills thing. I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, it was cool when you had Sean Taylor just going and lighting up punters in the Pro Bowl, and they're playing in Hawaii and, like, that whole thing. But, like, clearly the players don't care about it anymore. So let's just make it a skills competition and leave it at that. We don't need the flag football anymore.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. All right, Sean Mannion. This is interesting to me. I want to dive into this a little bit because I have some thoughts on why, and I have some positive thoughts on why. And look, if you've listened to the show before, you know I'm tremendously optimistic with most things Packers. I just am. You know, with the defensive coordinator hire, I was tremendously optimistic with Jeff Hafley. This is interesting to me because Sean Mannion had a long career as a backup quarterback in the NFL. He was brought in, I think, Friday for an interview and ultimately hired as like an assistant quarterbacks coach for the Packers. But it was also announced this weekend that Tom Clements would be returning for the Packers for at least one more season. So this could be kind of a, hey, come be the understudy for a year, and maybe you'll work your way up to be the quarterback's coach. You trust Sean Mannion. I mean, he carved himself out a nice career in the NFL. You trust his input on things. He has a good understanding of this offense from being all around the league. He has a good understanding of multiple offenses and different schemes. And I just think this is helpful, right, when you have a young quarterback room. And I wouldn't be shocked if the Packers draft another quarterback this year. Late, obviously not to replace Jordan Love, but very late, like they kind of did with Sean Clifford a year ago. They might bring in somebody to compete with Sean Clifford for that backup quarterback job. Sean Mannion seems like a great asset to have as like an extra body, right? I mean, we mentioned Tom Clements and how much of a quarterback whisperer he's been for the Packers, helping Aaron Rodgers and ultimately elevating Jordan Love to what he was this year. I think Sean Mannion is a really interesting hire. Now, I don't know how much we'll hear from him. I don't know how much he'll do. I don't know how much of an impact he'll have. But it's an interesting move, and I'm a fan of it. I'm into it. All right, real quick, Grammys wrap up, then we'll be joined by Jim Rutledge. I just have like rapid fire thoughts on the Grammys. Number one, Tracy Chapman reappearing in the public spotlight for the first time in 4 years was awesome. Her first live performance in 4 years. She obviously her song "Fast Car," which I think, by the way, is one of the greatest songs ever. It was covered by Luke Combs, blew up. They duetted.
They did a duet.
They duetted. They did a duet. Phenomenal. Thought that was awesome. Billie Eilish wrote the saddest song ever, won Song of the Year. But congrats to her from the Barbie movie. Who else? What else happened? Miley Cyrus won a Grammy. It was her first one ever, which surprised me. I had quite the hairdo. That was my takeaway.
That was
Miley. That was a wild hairdo. What else happened? Paramore won some things. Oh, Jack Antonoff. He's fascinating to me. He's like a producer for everybody. He won Producer of the Year for like the fourth straight year. But you remember the band Fun? They sang like "Tonight We Are Young." He was the drummer in that band. And now he's the front man for the band Bleachers, but he's also like the greatest producer in pop music right now. So I'm fascinated by that dude. And then Taylor Swift wins a couple of things, drops an album. Phenomenal. Those are my quick hit thoughts.
I wasn't watching it live until just after Taylor announced the new album, and my wife was watching it in the bedroom, and she like literally started like cheering because all the Swifties were expecting it to be the Taylor's version of Reputation.
Yeah.
And then the fact that it wasn't, it was a whole new album.
It's a whole new album, which is fun.
And I saw a TikTok this morning, which I think is hilarious because she's been working on this for the last 2 years. There's a chance there could be a Travis Kelce song or inspired song on this album, which is just amazing that there's going to be a song inspired by a guy that can't spell squirrel. So
wait, what?
His old. Do you not watch New Heights?
No,
or
I
listen
do.
to it?
How recent is this? I haven't heard that. He can't. I don't know that I can spell squirrel.
They were going through some people as it turned out he was dating Taylor Swift. Some of the Swifties were going back through old tweets because apparently that's what you do to people.
Oh, I have seen this.
Yeah, and he's squirrel.
I don't know that I know how to spell squirrel.
No, but you have a smartphone that can tell you how to spell squirrel.
That's a fair point.
So that's
All
and
right.
It's just wild to me that he's going to be like potentially inspiring a song, and I'm excited for it. I like Taylor Swift. We've talked about it.
She won a Super Bowl last night, right? Winning two big awards, including Album of the Year.
Yeah.
Hopefully her boyfriend can win a Super Bowl this weekend. I'm rooting for the Chiefs, as is Jim Rutledge, who's going to join us next. But first, I got to tell you, speaking of exciting, how about our exciting new partnership with our friends from Lake Louie Brewing, locally in Verona, as well as their Badger Club, Amber Lager. Next Monday, we've got a very exciting announcement to make with them regarding our search for the best burger in Madison. We're going to give you more details on that next Monday. But I celebrated this weekend, had a couple of Badger Clubs. And by a couple, I mean I had like 4 or 5 on Friday night. They were delicious. They're the best. So super excited about our relationship with Lake Louie, which so many great options, but Badger Club and our search for the best burger in Madison, which we will kick off next Monday. So shout out Badger Club, shout out Lake Louie, and shout out to every restaurant that's going to be participating. So we've counted down to 1 and crowned the best burger in Madison. Give you more details on that coming up next Monday. It's exciting. It's very exciting stuff. You excited? We're gonna have to eat like a bunch of burgers over the course of the next couple weeks.
Yeah, I'm so excited about it.
I'm being purposely vague, by the way, because we're gonna give more details on
Yeah.
how you can get involved and help us out beginning next Monday. But I know that I will be eating a lot of burgers, which just excites me.
Yes, it's incredibly exciting. When we started talking about this, I told my wife about it, and she was like, you might want to start working out again to get ready for it if you're going to be eating all these burgers, because I have to.
Yeah.
I have to try them, and I love a good burger, so this is great. I'm so excited.
So is Jim Rutledge joining us? What's he doing? It just seems lurking out there.
I made eye contact with him and kind of did the head nod, like, okay, you can come in, and he looked at me, and he just kept talking with Matty Hayes, so I will actually go out there and get him.
Great. Yeah, great job. Well, by the way, I kind of brushed over this at the beginning. I want to give a shout out to Matt Hamilton, which is Jim Rutledge's co-host on Rutledge and Hamilton weekdays 4 to 6 on ESPN Madison. He won a national championship this weekend. Come on in, Jim. What about you? Shut up. But Matt Hamilton wins a national curling championship. So I'm wearing my USA curling medal when I was a coach, Jim, for the mixed doubles national championship 2 years ago.
Oh, I was there for that, yeah.
And
you were as coach as much as I was coach. But
you were actually more of a coach. I think you appeared more.
But you're a special friend, so he gave you a medal.
I am. But I also noticed on Wikipedia there is not a coach listed for that, but also not for what they won this weekend. So did they fire their coach at some point?
They do have a coach, but I don't think they coach on the weekend. Like, I don't think they coach at the event. I think it's one of those things where they're more coaching from afar.
Oh, okay.
Like, hey, here's some things that I've seen in your matches. Here's some tweaks you can make. Because I think they've made some slight tweaks to their team, but I think it still is really Schuster's more their player coach, and it's more like an advisor coach is how I understand it.
Okay.
No offense if they have a regular coach who's there more often than
So
not.
I don't understand curling.
Who does?
I've tried.
Yeah.
I've just failed miserably. Like, I saw that he made a position change.
Yes,
Matt did.
I knew that. Yes.
I don't know
and
the
that
difference.
was strategic. I think, is it Huffman, a big tall
Colin,
guy?
yeah.
Yeah, so he is just like, he can really sweep because of how big and tall and the angles he gets. So competitive advantage to have him in that spot. And then Matt, competitive advantage. And I think they did, there's some like anything else, I think there's like analytics to it, is my understanding. So
Okay.
like Matt at times, I think when Schuster was out, a couple weeks ago, that Matt was in a different position, and that worked really well for everyone. So then they thought, let's just try this, and it worked.
And it leads to a national championship.
Yep.
Fascinating stuff. Who can't wait. All right, it's Super Bowl week.
Yes.
I haven't even mentioned that yet. Big one this weekend, obviously, coming up on Sunday. Chiefs-Niners. It's a rematch of 4 years ago, I think it was, 2021 or 2020, the Super Bowl 2019 season. Mahomes has the opportunity to do something really special this weekend. If he wins his third Super Bowl, I don't know where you put him all time, but he has to be in the conversation of probably top 5 if he isn't already.
Yeah, and where do you have him now?
I'd have to sit down and hash it out.
So I'm trying to, off the top of my head, I'm trying to think of this. I think if he wins, he moves into, there's maybe a handful of quarterbacks that have 3 Super Bowl wins.
Yeah, like I think he's probably in the Montana.
I think
range.
it goes Brady, Montana, and then there's a handful of people that have like Terry Bradshaw and others that have 3.
Yeah, I do put talent into that a little bit. So like Peyton Manning's high on my list.
Yep.
I would say Rodgers and Favre are somewhere in the top 10. Breeze is probably in there.
So I think the one Super Bowl winners, you kind of have to, it's just life. You got to tear him down a little bit. Just like Dan Marino could be at the top of this list,
Yeah.
but he hasn't ever won. So
Yeah.
that's just, everyone plays by the same rules. I honestly would put him almost squarely at number 2, unquestionably at number 3 already. If he wins the
Already?
Super Bowl.
Oh, if
well,
he wins, okay.
yeah. Right now, I'd probably put him 5. If he wins, I'd put him behind Montana, pacing to pass. And I think it's very similar to like Jordan with like the Russell rings. He doesn't have to get 6 just from like, it's a different era. I know they overlapped a little bit, but like it is a different era. If he continues this level of success and winning and play and he wins 1 or 2 more, then I think we can kind of call it square for Mahomes. I don't think he has to get to 6. He still might, though. I mean, he's 28, and he'll have 3. But I would say that he's pacing to be the greatest of all time, and I think he's pretty close to being number 2.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by how quickly he's done this.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, Brady played forever. He played forever. He won 7, and he's the greatest of all time. He's the greatest winner of all time. We understand that. But the fact in which Mahomes has only been a starter for what, six? This is his sixth season as a starter.
6 straight AFC Championship
Fourth Super Bowl appearance. Yep. I mean, it's absurd. It's unheard of. Brady at his peak was, I mean, he was always in the conversation. He was always in the AFC Championship game. But there were times where he was beat. And with Mahomes, it just seems like nobody can beat him. I think Burrow beat him the one year.
Well, and there's an aspect to him that you talk about, like Brady and Montana. They're a little bit more like those who try to make a case. So just stay with me for a second. That Brock Purdy could be the next big thing. They point to both those guys, especially early in their career, were kind of just running the system that was out there, but they had the nerves and they had the intangibles to be able to be calm, cool, and collected in those big moments and make big plays. And then over time, they got better, especially Brady. You really saw that. I think he didn't throw for 5,000 yards or didn't win MVP until he was about 30. So he was one of those guys that kind of grew into his stature, literally and physically. But Mahomes is more like Rodgers, except Rodgers didn't have the wins. Where you're watching a guy make virtuoso throws and performances like nothing you've ever seen. And like that's like Marino was a guy like that. Elway was a guy like that. Peyton Manning's not a guy like that. Drew Brees and Tom Brady and Joe Montana, they were, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but they were closer to this idea of like they ran their systems to perfection. They were more like mad scientists. This guy is a mad scientist and an incredible playmaker.
Yeah, I think the Rodgers comparison is important because I think that's the talent conversation, right? And then there's the winning conversation, and Mahomes seems to be putting them both together. And that's not to say Tom Brady wasn't talented, but he certainly wasn't like the most off-script talented quarterback we've ever seen, where Mahomes may already have that title.
If you were going to go most talented QBs in this realm of being the top 10, it would be Mahomes and Rodgers, but you'd put Mahomes in front of them even without the wins at this point, but the wins make it easy.
Yeah, the wins make it easy. And it's crazy to see a guy put together the best of both worlds because we've seen that offense fall apart.
Yep.
Right? Like Travis Kelce is still Travis Kelce. He still gets open. But you lose Tyreek Hill. You lose some of the offensive line play. You lose some other receivers and just slot in new ones, right? Like MVS has played a big role this postseason.
I mean, Juju Smith-Schuster was helpful last year. He's out. He's not on a team this year.
Right.
So, I mean, they've cycled out players. And through the regular season, Kelce was obviously still very good, but he was not this version of Travis Kelce. I mean, you could tell he's one of those older players that are kind of just saving it for the playoffs, which some guys need to do. It is now.
And it's worked,
he is
right?
back to Hall. He was fringe Pro Bowler Travis Kelce in the regular season. Now he's Hall of Famer Travis Kelce again. And obviously you've seen that jump. You've seen Rice develop under Mahomes, and I think he'll be the new one along with Pacheco as far as who's going to kind of go with Mahomes going forward. Those are two names I think will pop up pretty quick.
I was listening to, I don't even remember. I was listening to Gabe Knightley. He was on ESPN Radio last night, and they were having a conversation around, like, when's the last time the best running back in football won a Super Bowl? I couldn't think of it. Maybe like Emmitt Smith?
Wow.
I mean, Christian McCaffrey has the opportunity to do that on Sunday, obviously, because he is, bar none, the best running back in football. But it goes back to this conversation we had in the offseason of, like, how do you value a running back? The best running back in football, right? Think like LaDainian Tomlinson never got it done. Sean Alexander obviously had a very brief stint, but he won that MVP award. They didn't get it done when he was there. I can't think of the best running back in football winning a title in 20, 30 years. It's
running
been
back,
forever.
I think, is a little bit like having a defense where the idea that if you have Mahomes or Brady, some of his great QBs, you need to have a defense that's good enough, and you need to have a running back that's good enough. Now in the reverse with Purdy, McCaffrey makes a difference. And he's not a traditional running back. I mean, he does a little bit of everything.
Does everything, right.
And I think it's the offense. So, like, if you brought this to the Packers, Aaron Jones is, I think, instrumental to the success of Jordan Love and this Packers offense. And I do think for this specific offense that the Packers run, look at Tannehill. When Henry was near MVP levels, Tannehill looked better. So when you run an offense that's like this, I do think you need a premier running back to be successful, or at least a guy who doesn't have to be a traditional back, but you have to have that real threat of the run.
Yeah.
Even though you see a lot of passes, you see these quarterbacks, they call it a quarterback-friendly offense, but quarterback-friendly. Look at even the Rams. Didn't they get Cam... Did they get Cam Akers back during their Super Bowl run? Was that the year they got him back? I feel like and that helped. I think push them over the top. Like having an effective and real running game that you have to respect, I think is important in this offense.
It was only 2 years ago, but I almost wanted to be like, Todd Gurley, and I think Todd Gurley was. He was so good for like a year, and then he just completely. Fell
he was
off
so
the
good
cliff.
for like 4 years, and then he fell off. He was good for a bit.
He was good, yeah, and then he just, I don't know, injuries derailed him, but that happens sometimes. But the thing with the Niners is, right, and you mentioned it, they have this offense in which it's built for this. But McCaffrey is so damn good. But they also have so many other pieces around Purdy, right? Like we mentioned it a few weeks ago when they played. Hunter saying maybe Terrell Davis in '98 was the last time the best running back in football. That would make sense.
Yeah.
That was the year I was born, by the way. Right? Like that's how long it's been.
'98. So I graduated high school. So yeah.
You're old. I mean, what do you want from me?
Yeah.
But they've set him up so well otherwise, right? Like you have Ayuk, you have Debo, you have George Kittle, you have all these pieces offensively, the offensive line, right? You have like the best left tackle in football in Trent Williams, one of the best ever. So you have so many other pieces that complement each other, but that helps obviously elevate McCaffrey too.
Yeah.
I think they might win. I've talked myself into it. I want the Chiefs to win. I'm embracing greatness. I'm usually not. I'm very curious how San Francisco can slow down Mahomes, but that Kansas City defense is also pretty solid.
Right. I honestly am going back to, I think it's going to come down to the wire, and then that's where I'd go with Mahomes and the 49ers. Or excuse me, Mahomes and the Chiefs over the 49ers, because I just think that Mahomes will make enough plays. It could come down to a kick, like a game-winning kick, that I could see the 49ers. But at the same time, the Chiefs gave fits to the MVP.
Yeah.
And Brock Purdy, as much as I respect him, he's not the singular talent that Lamar Jackson is. Now, this offense, again, will allow you to unlock some things and make life easier for a quarterback. But their last two games, the 49ers, either they got down or got down big. I think in either case, you get down to the Chiefs, whether like how they got down to the Packers or like they got down to the Lions, the game's over. We saw it. The Ravens got down, and that was it.
Yeah, you're not scratching and clawing your way back against the Chiefs.
No.
Right? That's just not happening, whereas against Green Bay and Detroit, it can happen. It's not happening against Kansas City.
There's this other part of it that, to your point on Mahomes and Brady, and I think this is just the competitive advantage that builds in and bakes in year over year, is that this Super Bowl is not at all daunting to them or this Chiefs team.
No.
Been there, done that. I mean, so many of these players and coaches, this is not an overwhelming moment for them. We talked about that with the Packers, their first playoff game, and they got through that. But I think against 49ers, they were like, oh, this is everything. And I think they got tight, and Love made some mistakes. I could see Purdy, same thing, of either coming out tight or when it gets close. And this is where legends are made. He could come out there and play smooth. Mm-hmm. And all the knocks on him are going to go right out the window, because that's how the victors write history. And so if he does do it and outduels Mahomes, or even if he doesn't, if he just throws 2 touchdowns, throws for 225 yards and like 65% completion percentage,
he's a franchise quarterback, right? All the negative Nancy's go bye-bye. You're absolutely right about that, because he goes down in history, right? Like even like Nick Foles had a fun story, and he got opportunities elsewhere, and obviously it didn't work out because, truth be told, he wasn't that great of a starting quarterback in the NFL. But against Tom Brady that one night, he was a great quarterback.
Oh, there was it not Larry Allen, but it was a cornerback for the Cowboys, Larry Brown, I think, or something like that. Maybe it was Larry Allen. He had 2 picks in the Super Bowl against the Steelers to help them win it, and he got paid by the Raiders the next year.
Yeah.
So there's been these players who defensively or had random.
Well, Malcolm Butler for the Patriots, right?
Idea,
That's another example. He got paid by the Titans right after that.
He didn't get paid, but there was a receiver for the Patriots that got a lot of hype because he switched over to cornerback because they were so thin. And it's
that one I don't remember.
I wish I had it.
It couldn't have been Deion Branch. That's where I thought you were going with that. But he won the MVP that one year.
No, it was before him. It was like one of their first Super Bowls.
I'll find an answer. But but the Chiefs are going to do something that hasn't been done in 19 years, which is go back to back. Troy Brown is the wide receiver you're thinking of that played quarterback for the Patriots.
But it was a wide receiver otherwise.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, but that's Belichick for you, though, right? Like, he just wants football players.
But that was just one of those stories where, like, it's just ingrained in your brain. Like, if you watched it, it was just really unique.
But the Chiefs looking to do something that hasn't been done in 19 years, which is win back-to-back Super Bowls, which is crazy to me, right? Because we think of the Patriots and how the dynasty, quote-unquote, was, and it was a dynasty. They won 6 Super Bowls in less than 20 years. They only went back-to-back once, though, which is interesting. Because you see it, I feel like that's pretty often like the NBA.
Yeah.
It hasn't been super often recently in the MLB.
The NBA, it's the 3.
Yeah.
That you can't get. I think it was the Lakers were the last team to do it with, like, Kobe and Shaq and then Jordan. But, like, that's it. So the unsustainable, the holy grail in the NBA is 3, and I think in the NFL it's back-to-back. And if they do it, again, if the Chiefs do it, everything just has to shut up. Are you pro or greatness? Because in the Super Bowl, it's not underdogs. Like, in the March Madness, you could get an underdog.
Yep.
Like, but in this case, this is like 2 1 seeds. It's not literally 2 1 seeds going together, but it kind of is when you have the Chiefs. But if this was the NCAA tournament, you'd have like Kentucky versus UCLA or whatever. Like, there's no underdog in this story.
No, there isn't. And I told Hunter last week, right? Like, Mahomes now deserves the Tom Brady treatment because he proved he can do it. He's proved many times he can do it at home in the postseason. To prove back-to-back weeks that you can do it on the road. To go to hostile environments like Buffalo and Baltimore, right?
Knock off the number one seed.
Right, knock off the two home teams on the road that are two of the loudest crowds in the NFL. To go on the road and do that and just cement yourself again in the AFC Championship, win the AFC Championship, go to the Super Bowl with the opportunity to win back-to-back Super Bowls for the first time in 19 years. Like, you can't pick against Mahomes ever.
I agree. And it's also the team. So there's this little note that the whole controversy around our friend and teammate Mark Chmura said you got to go out there and play past the echo of the whistle.
Yep.
And he was trying to talk about setting an establishment or like of a mentality for the Packers against 49ers. What Kelsey did, and he talked about it afterwards on his podcast, New Heights, with his brother Jason Kelsey, was the whole Justin Tucker thing. Mm-hmm. And they were asking about it. And Tucker does that. Kickers do that. And he basically said that Tucker was kind of winking and smiling at him. It was just having fun. It wasn't being aggressive and like being a jerk about it. But they went into it, the Chiefs went into it, the mindset of we are here for business. We're not going to F around. And we have to be locked in from the second we get there. So that's why he did the toss, because it was just one of those things. And I think that's what Chmura was trying to get at when he referenced it, of like, no games, no smiling, no. And I think Tucker was trying to get them off their game, to loosen up even 1%. And but it's just that idea of that mentality. I'm not like the behavior. Like, you play stupid games, you get stupid prizes. There's a stupid game, stupid prize. That is what it is. Honestly, if you're upset about it, you're just not a football fan. Like, it's no big deal.
It's all nothing.
Right?
It's
exactly.
all a big nothing.
But
burger.
To me, the only part that mattered was when Kelsey said afterwards, like, we were locked in, and we were just not going to play the game that day. Regular season, we play that game, and we goof, and we just whatever. We weren't playing the game that day. But to me, that spoke to, we knew what we had to do to go win at Baltimore.
Yeah. All right. So it was kind of a dead weekend this weekend. So I just want to ask you, give me an estimate on how many minutes you watched the following thing. Okay. Ready? The Pro Bowl.
Pro Bowl? There wasn't a game, was it?
There was a flag football game.
Okay. So of the flag football game, none. I watched some of the other festivities, maybe 4 or 5 minutes on like social media.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at.
The Kelsey snaps and the... Was it some sort of like sled pushing thing?
There was a sled pushing
dodgeball
thing. There was dodgeball. There was the quarterback like accuracy challenge that they were bringing back, which is cool. Yeah. But there was an actual flag football game yesterday played. At least I think.
I saw.
Unless I'm making this up.
I saw a highlight of it, and C.J. Stroud made like a spin move, and I thought to myself, "What a stupid game! Why are they playing this game? Like, why? If I'm a Texans fan, I don't want Stroud doing anything out there."
No, right, and doing spin like the Pro Bowl hasn't been cool since Sean Taylor laid that great hit. Like, that was when it actually was fun.
But all this other stuff was so fun. Like, that actually was more interesting to me. Like, just see the athletes. I think the NFL is onto something. You don't get a chance to see athletes just be like fun, normal people. So let them do more of that. Nobody's asking for the game. Even the flag football game, nobody's asking for it. The skills competitions and watching them goof around and have fun with the fans and everything, that was a good time.
Yeah, I'm cool with that. But the flag football part, I watched 0 minutes of. How about the Grammys? You watch the Grammys at all?
So I watched the first probably 25 minutes because my girls want to watch it. So I did stop it. Now, I did see a lot on social media, so I know a good chunk of what happened. So basically right after Tracy Chapman performed Fast Car.
Terrific, by the way.
Amazing. Like, she could have... Luke Combs didn't have to be there. Like, honestly, like the whole time I'm like, shut up, Luke. Like,
can we
just go back to Tracy?
But they did sound good together.
They did sound good together. It was just one of those things of like,
I want to hear the original song.
Right. Well, and she's so, I mean, she's just remarkable.
She's
and
amazing.
And when she was singing, everything about her was like perfection that night. So it wasn't even a knock on Luke. It was just more like, fine, you're there. And I'm glad that song was brought to new people who would never heard it.
I was such a hardo on that for a long time, but I've come around to it. I'm like, you know what? You're right. People need to know this is one of the greatest songs ever.
And I'm still not like thrilled about it, but it made her a ton of money. And I think they said there was like 1 million downloads within like the first 3 minutes of Tracy Chapman's song.
Oh, good.
Right after that. So, but overall, like I probably saw 35, 40 minutes.
How about
social.
How about Wisconsin, Purdue?
So that one was a combination of hearing it on the radio and seeing it. So I was out to eat with the family when the game started. So I watched the first half where we were eating, and then I went to a camper show in Madison. And
you were such a dad.
Yeah, dude, I had a lot of dad. I was very upset with having to pay $8 to park at the Line Energy Center on top of a ticket. That really bothered me. But I didn't want to make the kids walk. I would have just parked and walked. Like, it's just extortion. It's just extortion. And then on top of it, I was extorted
Oh, you were extorted further.
I want to share this. So, and nowhere on their website for this camper show at the Atlanta Energy Center did they say that they're only going to accept cash for the tickets. So when you get there, they're like cash only. And where do you go ever that's cash only?
Hey, I only see the opposite.
Right. So then I had to go use the ATM. Charge me $3.
Oh man! So
You
got
know they're in on it.
$11.
You know they're in on it. You know they're in on it.
$11 of extortion for
Yes,
Jim
you know
Rutledge.
they're in on it. And then here's the worst part, Alex. You go inside, and we didn't get anything inside because we just ate. You wanted to buy something from concession? Cashless.
Card only. No kidding.
Yeah. Just pure,
What the hell?
unadulterated extortion at the Atlanta Energy Center on Sunday, without a doubt. I don't know if that was the Energy Center or if that was the people running the camper show, but sheer extortion. The $8 is what it is. The $3, and it was a credit union, not UW Credit Union, that was also a part of this because their logo's on it. So even though they weren't the one charging the $3, they're a party to it. They're a party to it. So I was very upset about all that. But the game was on in all the campers.
Okay, so
or the TVs had it on or the radio.
Hold on.
I consumed probably 70% of that game.
I care a lot less about the Badger game all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So how does your wife handle when you're upset with something like this? Because I know for a fact you're a very verbal guy. You don't hide your feelings well.
Oh yeah, the people. They were well aware I was unhappy. Not the kids, my wife. I mean, they were aware, but
of course they were aware.
The person I had to pay.
Oh, you told them?
No, I just they said $20, and I just not like threw, but just kind of flicked $20 at them. Gave me the tickets. Didn't look at them. Took the tickets, and then didn't just kind of tossed tickets towards the people who had to pay go, and then went in, and then that was it. And then. My wife just needed to let me vent just let me be mad for about 3 minutes, which
Only
I was.
3 minutes.
I'm better at calming down now. I was pretty upset. And then I got upset. And then she actually got annoyed too. She's like, "All right, you have a right to be upset." When she saw the
cashless concession stance is amazing.
When she saw that, she's like, "Yeah, you have a right to be upset."
Okay,
and I can afford $3. I just don't like being extorted. I mean, it's sheer extortion. Because if they had said this, "Hey, you got to have cash by the ticket," fine. Who carries
sheer
cash?
Extortion. Nope, I don't. I think I have $4 in my
and
wallet.
you already paid to park, so you can't go anywhere. Like it's literally like they should be arrested for extortion.
What is a camper show?
You can. I don't know how they get all these campers in there. You walk. It's great for the kids because
so it's a bunch of campers.
Yeah, and so you buy the tickets. Tickets aren't expensive. You walk around and see all those campers. Yeah. So we might trade in ours for one a little smaller, but we'll.
You're getting a new camper?
Maybe we'll see. We'll see. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So anyway, the Badgers lost to number 2 Purdue.
They did. I almost to the number I predicted. I had 75-64, I think.
Yeah, you were in the wheelhouse. I was also in the wheelhouse, but I had the result incorrect.
Yeah. That's part that matters.
I thought the Badgers would find a way to win. Well, shoot, Jim. They shoot over 11 from outside in the second half. They hit 2 of those. We got a tie game.
Yes, but that's a little bit who they are. Like they are streaky. They can go and the weirder part for me is that since the dawn of modern Badger basketball, that's who they are. Like that's the part that always blows my mind. Is that outside of the
consistently streaky?
Yeah, outside of the Final Four teams, that the Badgers always can just go through crazy, and sometimes it carries over a couple games where they just can't hit anything.
Yeah, and I'm intrigued to see what they are down the stretch here because February is pretty doable, right? I think they have 9 games left, like 7-2 would put them at 15-5 overall in Big Ten play. 15-5 is a good record, right? That should be good enough to be second place or first place in the Big Ten.
You watch more college basketball than I do. I
watched a lot on Saturday.
I don't care for it much anymore, and just a real part of it is it used to be an incubator for players going to the NBA. I love the NBA. I loved watching NBA players shine in college games and just have these magical moments. It's just more increasingly rare. Some of the top, I want to say like 2 out of the top 10 or 11 players are in college basketball. I think they both play Kentucky. Maybe there's one other guy in there, but a lot of them are either in Europe or in the G League. So it's just not the same for what I liked about it.
That's fair.
But it does feel like teams like Wisconsin, and I'll use the one team that I do follow, I've seen more games than anyone else, is FAU. And partially it's because it's the same guys. The same players, outside of one guy, I believe, that are back this year. So now it's like I know these players, I know their game, I know they're going to play. But I think that's an advantage for them as a team, which is why that mid-major team in FAU, they're ranked 20th. They'd be higher if they, were not a mid-major. And they had one just stupid loss on their record. But otherwise, like that team, much like Wisconsin, when you're bringing back so many of these players, I think the teams that have the best chance to really make good regular season runs and deep tournament runs, because it's so rare. It's always the best case scenario in college basketball, but I'll just make up percentage. But it felt like maybe 10 years ago, 70% of the teams would bring back 3 out of your 5 starters. And now I feel like it's like 10% of the teams.
Yeah, it's pretty rare. And the transfer portal obviously plays into that too.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, FAU's an experienced team, and you're right, they're ranked 20th. I said at the beginning of the show, AP poll wasn't out yet. It's out
11th
now.
for the
11th
Badgers.
for the Badgers. 7 for Marquette, which is also what they are in the coaches poll. So Marquette remains a top 10 team. Wisconsin falls only 5 spots despite an 0-2 week, which is really interesting.
I really call it a one-loss week because the Purdue loss, yes, it was at home, but you're losing to the second-best team in the country.
Yeah,
so
and
you shouldn't
you
free
didn't
fall.
you didn't get your butt kicked, right? Like a couple things went wrong. You shot yourself in the foot a couple times.
I wish they could shoot themselves in the foot. They couldn't even pull that off.
That's fair. They'd probably miss. But overall, not a bad loss. The Nebraska loss, bad because he blew a 19-point lead. Tough place to play. A Big Ten team has not won at Nebraska yet, if you're not named Nebraska, so I get it.
Is Hoiberg still the coach out there?
Yeah, I think so.
I like
I think Hoiberg's still there.
I don't want the Badgers to win, but I still like Hoiberg. I like Hoiberg.
What's his background? Why do you like him?
Well, he played at Iowa State, so I remember him playing basketball.
Okay.
He coached some really fun Iowa State basketball teams. Went to the Bulls. That did not work out. But and then I think it's more than just watching him play, and then I liked the Iowa State team when he coached there.
He is certainly not at Nebraska anymore. I was full of poo. He hasn't been there
Doc?
for like 5 years.
Doc something? Is that the guy at Nebraska?
I have no idea.
All right, you should know this. You're the college guy.
I literally watched a game in which he coached. Well, I did fall asleep at halftime, so that might have something to do with that.
Where's Hoiberg now?
Hoiberg's not doing anything.
Really?
He's not doing anything.
I like Hoiberg.
Once again, why?
I just told you why. I watched him play ball, and he coached at Iowa State. I like those teams. He was not good at the Bulls as a coach.
What is Hoiberg? I lied to you.
Happening?
It said he's a former college basketball coach, but
Right,
now I'm
'cause
on
he
his
coached-
Wikipedia page, and it says he's the head coach of the Nebraska Cornhuskers.
You are all over the place. Now I want to know.
do you miss me producing your show for moments like this?
Gracious. Look, in this
Even
case,
I got Wikipedia wrong.
Yeah, that's impressive because he is I mean, it's weird that they put a former college basketball coach because I mean he did coach college basketball, then went pro, and then went back to college basketball.
Yeah.
So I'd call him a former NBA coach, but it is Wikipedia. So
It is Wikipedia. What is the number one thing the Packers need to do this offseason?
they gotta. That's a good question.
I know, because there's a lot of options, right? Like there's minimal ones, right? Like offensive line depth, bring in a second running back, beef up safety would probably be beef up defensive backs would probably be my answer, but they've got plenty of options.
Yeah, I would say this like safety specifically.
Yeah.
You could make a strong case that they might have had the worst safeties in the league. It's hard to say on the defense because I don't know exactly what they're going to do. Like if they switch to a 4-3, then they got to get a legitimate middle linebacker for this 4-3 defense, which I don't think Campbell or Walker would be. I think Campbell would have to go, and then Walker would go outside.
He's gone, yeah. I would agree.
So that would be. I think you just have to find a middle linebacker there. So you could upgrade that. Upgrade the middle. I mean, I think the D-line's fine, but middle linebacker and the safeties definitely need some upgrading. I honestly still do think that the smart move would be if you were trying to compete for a division, you got to hedge your bets a little bit wide receiver and not run up. Like, Watson is very much a giant question mark. Romeo Doubs, I think we kind of know what he is now. He basically improved with.
He's like Mr. Consistent.
Yeah, but he improved with more reps. And so it's not like he made a giant jump in overall talent. What are we doing here?
Just testing some things out. Continue.
And so I think he's a good receiver. But like if you look at legit like top tier teams, you'd want, and I think Wicks and other players are coming up, but I think you're a little bit further for what the Packers want to do. I think you're probably a solid vet away. Like again, look at Kansas City. They added MVS, they added Juju Smith-Schuster. Even though they have Rice and they had other young players who want to develop, they're like, hey, we have real goals now, so we got to add a player that, even for depth, but not a like again. I think Juju Smith-Schuster, MVS type play. You don't have to break the bank, but just add a guy that can provide a specific thing. And obviously Reed's in there, but he's not. He's more of, and I don't mean this disrespectful. He's a gadget specialty weapon player than a true receiver.
Sure,
Like if you went out there,
I think he can evolve into more of a true receiver.
I think you'd rather have like Dobbs and like a legit. I don't know if Reed has the. I mean, there's very rare one, but also like I don't know if he has a build for it. Like you think of like DJ Moore, Steve Smith, the smaller receivers that truly become those top guys. They're just bulkier. He seems more of like a Randall Cobb 2.0, which is still a hell of a player, and I think he could be a. I mean, I don't mean it in a disregard. Like a weapon can get you. I mean, Tyreek Hill's a weapon,
right?
And I don't think he's quite at that level. But
Debo's a weapon, right?
If you could have that, and he's different build than Debo, but I think he can be that really key player. But if you had a legit, it doesn't have to be a star, but just someone to line up because you don't know what Watson is,
You don't know if he can stay healthy, unfortunately.
Right. So I think if you had Watson and Reed as weapons, and you had Dobbs and mystery player X with Wyatt in there as well, or Wicks in there as well, then I do think now you're really loaded with known ability.
I have a hard time believing that would happen.
They're not going to do it, no.
But it'd be interesting.
Because like those players are, I mean, I think Smith, a lot of those players like 1 year, $10 million. MVS ended up being longer, but they could have gotten off it after 1 year. They were happy enough with it. Yeah. But you know who makes plays in those big games? Because that's what the Packers didn't do. They didn't make the 49ers made the plays in the fourth quarter. Their stars came through. The Packers' stars and young players did not.
Just don't remind me.
But like that is the case to adding a few vets.
Yeah. Are the Bears going to trade the number 1 pick?
I don't think so.
Okay. You think it's Caleb Williams, right?
Yeah, and you were on the air. So Schefter, I believe, was on Pat McAfee, and he said that everyone around the league thinks it would be Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams does not have an agent, which would, even if you wanted to try to pull off the impossible, which is really hard to do, strong arm your way out of somewhere.
Yeah.
The PR hit would be pretty crazy because Chicago is definitely a better landing spot. I know maybe Wisconsin disagrees than Washington, because remember, Chicago is a 7-win team that got the first overall pick.
I would agree.
So, and then Shane Waldron, who's coached Caleb at this quarterback camp he's a part of, is viewed as a good offensive coordinator, has got some experience. So that's a better landing spot, but it's really, you'd have to have a really experienced veteran agent to pull off I'm demanding a trade somewhere else, because the NFL doesn't want that to happen.
Who's the last one that did that? Eli?
Yeah, and the NFL hates that, and teams hate that. So, like, not collusion, but, like, just odds are stacked against the players don't have leverage to really be able to pull that off. So I don't
blow my mind.
But also, again, Colin Cowherd walked that back.
Yep, I saw that.
And I think it's more of, and I read an article today that the Bears share the same agent as Lincoln Riley. Like basically their GM, their head coach, and their offensive coordinator share the same agent as Lincoln Riley. Shane Waldron has worked with Caleb Williams at the camp he's at. And then the other part of it is, I didn't know this, Kevin Warren's pretty well connected. Apparently he's boys with LeBron James and a lot of other people. So if they need to lean on people to sell Caleb on Chicago, they have people they can lean on.
Have their people. Are you confident in the decision of moving on from Justin Fields then?
No, never. I mean, the Bears haven't gotten it right at quarterback. I do think I think Justin Fields could develop into a quarterback you can win with. I think Caleb Williams could be one of those quarterbacks you win because of.
Huh.
He has that potential.
What does he get? Like, in terms of compensation, what do you get for Fields?
I mean, Mel Kiper said a first. That seems a bit insane, unless you're looking at next year's first.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Well, here's where you'd look at it. I'll ask you this. Would you want Russell Wilson, Kirk Cousins and his contract, Russell Wilson and his baggage, or, am I missing him, or Justin Fields?
Justin Fields.
Right. So, like, that's where certain teams might look at it.
I wouldn't even think twice about
Here's
that.
where it makes a lot of sense. It's Pittsburgh. Because Arthur Smith.
Sure.
Because he was tied to Atlanta because Arthur Smith ran the offense at Tennessee with Tannehill. Well, you could make Justin Fields a Tannehill 2.0 in Pittsburgh. They have 2 great running backs. You put Justin back there, and then you have a good receiver out there. So now all of a sudden, and they're going to play complimentary football, just don't blow it for us, Justin. So like that would be where it would work.
But would it break your heart if you went elsewhere and he was just like terrific? Like I'm talking better than Tannehill.
It just have to be what Caleb is.
What if it takes Caleb a few years? And Justin next year lights it on fire.
Unfortunately, I think Justin Fields will light it up in a way that like Tannehill did, but at 2.0. Like, and again, so I think you can win with. I think Justin Fields could look really good, but we know there's quarterbacks who put up big numbers in a system that not necessarily. It's all because of them, and I think if Justin's in the right system, he could go from. Like a player who's like an ascending player to like a legit NFL starter who'll have a job for a long time. And I think like Justin, like if the Bears kept him, it's about what they're paying him, really. Now Caleb, I think Caleb can come in and immediately be the passer and be at or above the level where Justin was passing the football.
Interesting. All right, I always have to ask Bear questions. Yeah. All right, I kept you way longer than I said I was going to. So I appreciate you hanging out. I appreciate you talking life. You're picking the Chiefs to win, right?
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. All right, Jim Rutledge here on Rutledge and Hamilton, weekdays 4 to 6 on ESPN Madison and on Twitter at Jim Rutledge. He's probably not the most famous Jim Rutledge in the world, but he did get the Jim Rutledge username on Twitter, so I'm happy for him on that. All right, let's wrap up the show with this. You learn something new every day, as did I. It's time for What Strouf Learned. And Hunter Vaughn, Tiny Hands, I want your take on what I learned today. Which
I'm a little nervous about this, but okay.
No, don't be nervous. It's not nervousness. It's just I know you'll have an opinion on this. Actually, you know who would have had an opinion on this is Jim Rutledge because he was just talking about cashless versus. Actually, he'll like this. I don't know if you will. The Milwaukee Brewers announced today that they will be eliminating the possibility of like dealing with anybody when you park your car at games, right? So you are going to drive in, you're going to be directed to a spot, you're going to scan a QR code or go on an app, and you're just going to pay for your parking spot that way, right? So there's no cash. It's just all done over the interwebs now. You lose the interaction with a teller. You lose the interaction with some of the people in the parking lot. You just pull up to your spot. You pay it through an app brought to you by Interstate Parking Company, which is a local Milwaukee company that like you pay tolls through that app. Are you a fan of this or not?
I'm a fan of not needing to deal with people because I hate people. So I'm good there. But my problem is I think about the people that are like my parents' age.
Yeah.
They're going to hate this.
Yeah,
and that's
no
a
doubt.
huge chunk of the Brewers fan base.
Correct.
This is an older fan base.
Yeah.
So to sit here and do this, like, it's again, the Brewers do stupid things, and I don't understand them. Like, it wasn't that difficult to just know, like, oh, I'm going to a Brewer game. I got to have a 20 or whatever for the parking, or you just pull your card out. Like, it's not like it's costing
but
them
what if
that
I tell
much.
you this? What if I tell you this?
Like,
you can prepay for a cheaper price. So, like, if your parents know they're going to a game, they just buy the parking pass.
so
with
now
the
I have to
tickets.
walk them through a new way of doing it and a new website. Like,
I knew you'd have a
there's
negative
just-
way to spin this.
there's no because there's no way to do this and
I
it
love
make it work.
I love it because I purposely didn't want you to hear about this. I didn't want you to know this existed. I didn't want you to see this press release. They like just announced it. And I knew you'd have an opinion on this. So this came out right before the show started. And I was like, I know Hunter's going to have a take negatively about this. So you are not a fan for the older generation, but you like it for yourself.
I like it for myself because I understand how websites and apps work. But like again, the older generation's not going to know how to do this. All of us that are millennials or Gen Z are going to be getting phone calls from our parents
Oh, no
on
doubt.
how do I work this? How do I do the parking? What's going on? Why do they have to do this? And it's just going to be a huge headache for everyone in the state now. Thank you, Milwaukee Brewers.
You can find more information at brewers.com/parking. More Packers talk, more Super Bowl previews, and more conversations coming this week on Mr. Irrelevant, Wednesday and Friday beginning at 12:30 on the ESPN Madison YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and available wherever you get your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. If you listen on the podcast feed, rate it 5 stars or 4 stars, 3, whatever you think I deserve, whatever, honestly. Give us a thumbs up, though, on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the ESPN Madison YouTube channel. Big thanks to Jim Rutledge for just chit-chatting away. Big thanks to Tiny Hands, Hunter Vaughn, as always, for running the show. I'm Alex Strouf. We're back with you Wednesday. This has been Mr. Irrelevant. We'll talk to you then. Peace.